UFC 318 just wrapped up, and it might go down as one of the more unforgettable nights in recent MMA history. From Lil Wayne walking out Dustin Poirier and a very emotional retirement fight with Max Holloway, to a massive upset with Michael Johnson and Daniel Zellhuber, there is a lot to unpack with what was UFC 318. Let's get into it. Alright, let's get into it. Starting off the card with a banger. I may say my shit about women's MMA starting off a card, but if Carly Judas is gonna start off a card, I'll be watching. She's 2 for 2 in her last 2 fights with KOs, or TKOs. She absolutely dominated Nicole for the first 3 rounds. It was an absolute ass whooping up until the beautifully placed liver shot with a knee up the middle that pretty much shut Nicole down. Yeah, easy peasy, absolute ass beating. Moving on, Bruno Ferreira and Jackson McVeigh. Also, I will preface this by saying that we did pretty damn good on this card, especially on the prelims. Bruno Ferreira, Jackson McVeigh, I did think that grappling was going to come into this fight eventually, but Bruno Ferreira took things to the ground very quickly in the first round. Within the first minute, I want to say. Mounted Jackson McVeigh very easily. And once he got in mount, you could kind of tell that there was really no danger of Jackson McVeigh escaping that position. He had McVeigh's elbows away from his body, almost immediately isolating an arm. Got an arm isolated above the head, moved into like an arm bar, finished it pretty easily. Jackson McVeigh, it was his UFC debut. Bruno Ferreira is a very, very tough guy to get for your UFC debut. I mean, in my opinion, he was fighting pretty far. I know he's not like a huge name draw, but talent-wise, I felt like it was a little weird that he was the second fight on the card. But yeah, Jackson McVeigh, tough draw getting Bruno Ferreira for your first fight. He's a talented striker with a lot of power, and he's got really good grappling. So Bruno Ferreira gets it done. Good job. Ryan Spann and Lucas Bresky. Why was Lucas Bresky even fighting in the first place? Tell me. He was 9-6, now 9-7. He's 1-5 or some shit in his last 6 fights, right? Ryan Spann actually looked pretty good. Not that the fight lasted too long, but Spann definitely looked like the more technical guy in there. Ended up hitting a guillotine up against the fence. There was a lot, like, these first few fights went pretty quick. Like, I mean, we were hard pressed to get out of the first round with the first handful of prelims, which is great. I know I was saying, you know, name value wise, the prelims were lacking for a pay-per-view, and I still stand by that fact. But I did say, stylistically, like, these are great fights, you know, and I'm all for that. I love that they're making stylistic fights, but I would have thought they would have built it a little bit bigger for Dustin Poirier's last fight, but who the fuck am I? So yeah, Ryan Spann, you know, are we gonna act like this is really anything? No. You know, Ryan Spann was on a 1-5 fight skid before he got this win over an absolute fucking can that shouldn't have been in the UFC in the first place. So we're not gonna base anything off of this fact. I still consider Ryan Spann very much so past his prime and should not be looked at seriously still, because this was like Bryce Mitchell getting fed Kron Gracie, you know, and then people were like, oh, Bryce Mitchell's back. It's like, relax, dude. You beat a fucking dad of 3 that just got off his couch. Moving on. Jimmy Crute and Marcin Prachnio. Again, I don't know why Marcin Prachnio is still in the UFC. He's an absolute can. Super one-dimensional. He's like a fucking blue belt in jiu-jitsu, I'm pretty sure. I don't know how you get this far in your UFC career and still have absolutely no ground game. But Jimmy Crute hit a pretty slick armbar on him. I will give him that, but again, Marcin Prachnio is like not a good grappler at all. I did see in the post-fight interview that Jimmy Crute was saying that he was gonna he was calling out big names, saying that he was gonna be subbing people and he was gonna be, I'm back, blah blah blah. It's like, you beat an old can that has absolutely zero grappling. Stylistically, this was a big mismatch for Marcin Prachnio. Marcin Prachnio looked really slow in there, which is crazy to say because Jimmy Crute is super slow too. So if Marcin Prachnio is looking slow, that says something. I'm just saying. I know I'm kind of flying through these first few fights because we're going to talk a little bit longer about the main card. And honestly, some of these fights didn't last very long. They were quick finishes. There was a lot of fucking promos tonight, let me tell you. I'm sure they had a lot of promos regardless because it was Dustin Poirier's last fight, but they were beating a fucking dead horse tonight. It was crazy. Anyways, so we did really good. I'm backtracking here. We did really, really good in these first few. Got this one, this one, this one, this one. And so we're perfect up till now, right? Islam Dulatov, very, very talented. He's going to be a problem in the welterweight division. Super skilled. Adam Fugit, he's a tough dude. Like, he's not super easy to get out of there. But Islam was outstriking a little bit. I would say that Adam Fugit kept it competitive for the most part in the first round. You could tell that Islam's strikes were very much so more damaging though. Fugit tagged him a couple times, but it was always brushed off, never looked like it was really doing anything to Islam. Whereas every time Islam touched Fugit, you could tell it was rattling him a little bit. Got him up against the cage, TKO punches, very technical, very sound. Islam, again, he's going to be a monster to deal with at welterweight. He's on a 12-fight win streak, I want to say. It's either 11 or 12. Like, he lost one of his first fights as a pro, but this kid's going to be a problem in the welterweight division. His takedown defense was looking pretty solid too, so people are going to be really looking to get this kid on the ground, but I don't think that that's really where you want to take this guy. So definitely a prospect to look out for. He is on my radar 100%. Moving on. This one was a little weird, okay? So right out of the gate, Atiba just starts laying it on Robert, right? And tags him a couple times. And as soon as he tags him, Robert goes, "Give me some more." Kind of like we see when, fighters try and not taunt, but play off when they get tagged. Like, "Oh yeah, come on, that didn't hurt." He did that, and I was like, all right. Atiba tags him again. This time, tags him a little harder. Same thing. Robert says, "Give me some more." So Atiba goes, "Okay," and then pretty much just knocks him out. He's like, all right, well, if you're going to keep asking me to punch you in the face and you're not going to do fucking anything different about it, then okay, I will oblige and I'll punch you in the face. It was very weird. I don't think I've ever seen that before, where someone was just getting punched in the face and there was like no competitive nature to the fight at all, and he was just asking for more. It was weird. I don't know if it was like some fucking weird fetish he's got, but not a very competitive fight. Lasted very, very minimal time. And Atiba gets a super quick night at the office and a quick, easy paycheck, so whatever. So this one, Francisco Prado is an unfortunate situation because the kid's tough as nails. He gets hurt in every fight that he's in. Like, he's always getting tagged. But I knew that this one was gonna be shaky because his fight IQ mixed with his constant getting tagged in every fight he's in, you can't ignore that stuff, and it rears its head in every single fight. And he had some very low IQ moments today, or earlier tonight. Like, he got some good takedowns and some good control time, but was rushing to try and set up submissions and lost positions multiple times. Like, he got 3 takedowns but wasn't able to solidify anything with him because he was impatient. But it was a pretty decent fight. I mean, I thought that Prado won the second round, but I'll tell you what I really think fucked him up is in that first round, he gets that armbar attempt. It's pretty deep. Nikolai has to slam him on his head, and Francisco doesn't let go. Before he had even started the slam, when he started picking him up, it looked like his elbow was already past the center line. So I'd like to think that an experienced grappler like Prado is going to understand that armbar is no longer there. But he continued to hold on to it and got slammed on his fucking dome, right on the side of his temple. I thought he was out for sure, but somehow he stayed with it. Had a little bit of an onslaught put on him right after that. He survived, but it looked like he never really regained momentum after that. So Prado is struggling to kind of catch his footing in the UFC. I don't think that, he's 23, man. He's so young. He's getting some good experience right now. Like, he probably learned a ton in this fight. His last few fights haven't really gone his way, but Jake Matthews, Daniel Zellhuber, those are both tough fights. I think he probably should have won this one, just stylistically, but he's young. He might need a couple fights on the regional scene to get his confidence back up. The old Chris Mutino treatment, and then he's got a lot of time. Marvin Vettori and Brendan Allen, this was a banger of a fight. Absolute barn burner. These guys had some bad blood going into this. I know Marvin, was dealing with some personal stuff. I believe he lost his brother before the fight, so obviously not fun to fight when you're that emotional, but he seemed to use that as motivation. Very competitive fight. Marvin Vettori is, a legend. He looks to be impossible to get out of there, to be honest with you. He's just a big dumb brick that's just made to eat punches. And him and Brendan Allen had an absolute 15-minute war. Absolutely 15-minute war. It was awesome. I expected them to throw down, but I expected there to be more grappling, to be honest with you. And here's the thing. I think Brendan Allen would have grappled more, but I think in that first grappling exchange that they got into early on in the first round, I think Brendan Allen felt something and was like, nope, we'll keep this one on the feet. Because I think he thought that he was going to have the advantage for real. Like a big time advantage, And I think once they got into those first grappling exchanges, he rethunk his game plan and decided to bang it out, which, as a fight fan, I was not complaining about. But, Marvin Vettori he's struggling, man. I think he's 1-3 in his last 4. 1-4 in his last 5. But he's 31, man. That's tough, I mean, he's got a lot of fights in the UFC for being 31. And up until these last 3 fights, like he didn't have a lot of losses on his record. But that's what happens when you don't evolve, right? Marvin Vettori has been the same fighter since he got into the UFC. I don't feel like he's implemented anything new into his game, any new setups, nothing like that. Like, for instance, Max Holloway tonight, you could tell that he improved just from his last fight. It's like I haven't seen Marvin Vettori improve in the last 10 fights. He's tough as nails, and he always puts on a good fight, and some of them are boring, but you're usually going to get a decision out of Vettori because guys can't put him away because he's so damn tough, and then he can't put them away because he's boring as shit sometimes. So Brendan Allen, really good victory. Not really quite sure who they'll put him up against in middleweight, but nonetheless, this one, I know I was taking a big underdog here, and I don't think that the 125 was really accurate. I think a lot of people were counting Kyler out. Excuse me, it's 2 a.m. on the East Coast, man. I'm trying to knock this video out tonight right after the event. Usually wait till in the morning, but a lot of people were counting Kyler Phillips out, and for a good reason. I mean, Vinicius is a very, very talented young prospect, and stylistically, like, we saw 2 very different styles in there tonight. Like I said, Kyler Phillips is very bouncy, kind of karate-esque, and Vinicius was marching him down with his hands down by his waist, kind of big broing him the whole fight, to be honest with you. The first couple minutes of the first round, Kyler had a couple moments. I think he just came out a little bit more aggressive than Vinicius was expecting. But once, Vinicius got his grips about him and Kyler slowed down a little bit out of that first couple minutes, it was a very one-sided fight. Kyler was not able to get any takedowns. Vinicius did not look like he even cared when Kyler Phillips got in on a takedown attempt. Vinicius was tearing his legs up, and again, like, you could tell that when Vinicius was landing, Kyler did not like it. And even when Kyler would land on Vinicius was like, whatever, little bro. So yeah, he just big broed Kyler Phillips for 3 rounds, beat him up pretty good. Kyler had a fat mouse under his eye, and now he's lost to Rob Font in recent, and Vinicius Oliveira. So I think Kyler's got some adjustments to make. I think his style is just a little bit I don't want to say it's predictable, but I don't think that type of style works for someone that's his size. It works for someone like Wonderboy because they can fight at range. But, when you're 5'6" like Kyler Phillips, like, I think that style of fighting is a little bit difficult to be successful. Alright, on to the main card. Michael Johnson and Daniel Zellhuber, one of the biggest upsets this year in my opinion. Daniel Zellhuber is a very, very talented young, he's like 23, 25, some shit like that, young prospect. And Michael Johnson's like 39 and has a lot of mileage. He's got 20 plus UFC fights, been in some wars, been clipped a lot. But he honestly looked the best I think he's looked maybe ever tonight. He looked solid. Thudding punches, jab was on fire. And Zellhuber, you could just tell, like, that Zellhuber was having a little bit of trouble finding his flow. But I certainly did not think that it was going to go this way. I thought there was going to be some grappling in this fight, but Michael Johnson, fuck, man. 39. Is he going to be making a run at the title at 39? Maybe. Maybe. But he just made a massive upset tonight. Minus 900, man. That's super impressive for Michael Johnson. This was one of those fights where, you know, for Daniel Zellhuber, this was okay. You've gotten some decent wins. You're young. Let's see if you can actually hang with, like, the OGs. Because Michael Johnson's an OG. And we got our answer. He can hang with the OGs, but he can't beat them. At least he couldn't beat this OG. So, like, this one was super, super fun fight. I liked the stylistic matchup. Again, I thought we were going to get a little bit more grappling, but kudos to Michael Johnson, still getting it done at 39 years old. That's wild. So, we'll see who they give him next. I'm assuming he's going to be calling for someone, you know, top 10, top 15. Give it to him. Why not? This one was a little frustrating. Not going to lie. Not going to lie. So, it's also really weird that they don't have a knockdown for either one here. Right? Because Dan Ige got dropped to a knee. Unless they don't count it when you get dropped to a knee. And then Pitbull got dropped by that kick / knee. But they don't have a knockdown for either one of them. That's a little odd. But either way, this fight did not go the way that I thought it was going to go. I thought Dan Ige was going to be a lot busier. He tends to be a lot busier, but it seemed like he was putting a little bit too much respect into Pitbull's power. And yeah, he did hurt Ige a couple times. So, understandable. But even before Ige got hurt, it felt like Ige was definitely wary of the power, which we didn't really see when Pitbull fought Adrian Yanez. Right? So, I just thought Dan Ige was just going to be a little bit more busy. And Pitbull was not busy at all until he hurt Ige. He hurt Ige with a big punch and then finally turned on the jets and, like, started throwing combinations. But Pitbull was very slow to get started, was not throwing combinations, one punches at a time. It was, you know, this was not the fight that I expected. I expected Dan Ige to dog walk Pitbull, to be honest with you. And now we'll continue to see Pitbull on freaking main cards, man. Pitbull had no business being on this pay-per-view after losing his UFC debut. I don't know what world that makes sense. He's not a huge draw. Like, I don't know anyone in the UFC that's, like, super excited to see Pitbull fight. Like, he's been in 2 decisions, and he won 1 and lost 1. So, you know, that's all I'll say about that one. Fight of the night probably here. Kevin Holland and D-Rod. Absolute war. D-Rod looked good, man. He's got a sleeper build. Looks like he would absolutely be your worst nightmare. But Kevin Holland looked good too, man. I think the days of Kevin Holland not really showing up are probably behind us, you know? Like, there was that time where it was like, oh, you know, what version of Kevin Holland is going to show up tonight? And I don't think we've had to worry about that for a while. Like, he's been showing up every single one of his fights. He looked damn good. He got hurt, recovered. I thought he was going to be out of there, especially that first knockdown. Because that first knockdown, D-Rod followed up with a fucking massive ground and pound follow-up. And it looked like it really rolled Kevin Holland's eyes back. And, you know, that wasn't the only time he had him hurt. D-Rod hurt him pretty bad again in the second round. And then in the third round, D-Rod got hurt. I mean, they hurt each other multiple times. Kevin Holland did almost sneak in like an anaconda once or twice. D-Rod threatened a high elbow guillotine a few times. It was just a very fun fight. They were both throwing with absolute intent to hurt each other. Great fight. The build up to the main event was great. It really was. I mean, Kevin Holland and D-Rod threw caution to the wind. And that was like a true MMA fight. Like that was a, don't get me wrong, there were some sloppy moments, but that was a true MMA fight. A lot of wrestling scrambles. You know, Kevin Holland hit a couple key takedowns when D-Rod had him hurt. He had that really nicely timed double leg. But, you know, they displayed every facet of MMA in this fight. It wasn't just boxing. You know, it was wrestling. It was jiu-jitsu. It was Muay Thai. It was clinch work. Like, it was awesome. It was like, this is your ideal UFC main card fight right here. Absolute banger. Not just two guys standing in the pocket boxing, not just two guys wrestle fucking each other against the fence. It was a well-rounded MMA fight. Truly a treat. We don't get those very often anymore, I feel like. So, D-Rod squeaks out the dub over Kevin Holland. Very nice. Moving on, Paulo Costa and Roman Kopylov. This is the best that Paulo Costa has looked in years. I don't know if he got an upgrade on the TRT that he's using. It certainly looks it as he continues to bald at a very fast rate. But he beat the tar out of Roman Kopylov. It looked like, you know, Roman Kopylov didn't belong, which is crazy because he's been dismantling everyone in the middleweight division. He's been an absolute nightmare. And Paulo Costa looked prime. Like, before, he looked like Paulo Costa before Israel Adesanya got to him. He looked like the Paulo Costa that gave us the Yoel Romero war, right? Like, he came in with a lot of ferocity. His boxing looked crisp. His leg kicks were on point. He was chewing up that inside leg kick on Kopylov. Absolutely chewing his legs up. Incredible. I want to say that... Oh, one last thing that I completely skipped over, and the leg kicks from Paulo Costa reminded me. We need to check and see what Michael Johnson's left arm is made out of. It must be made out of titanium, because he absorbed like 20 plus leg kicks from Daniel Zellhuber. it got to the point where I was like, is his arm going to just break on one of these? But it never did. He kept blocking those gnarly leg kicks and then throwing power punches with his left hand. Sorry, my ADHD just fucking came out of nowhere, and I forgot that I touched on that, because that was crazy. I was sitting there going, how is his left arm not the size of a balloon? Anyhow, back to Paulo Costa. The secret juice was obviously working very well in this fight. He looked incredible. I hope that this is the Paulo Costa that we continue to see. He's only like 31, I think, or 34, sorry. So, you know, looks like he's got the formula on his secret juice dialed in. So maybe we get the fun Paulo Costa that gives us very high caliber, higher entertainment, violent fights. I'm here for it. I am absolutely here for it. But Roman Kopylov needs to do some soul searching after that one, because he got, I thought it should have been 30-27. I don't know what judge scored a 29-28, but I would have been totally cool with 30-27 here, because it was an absolute ass beating. No way around it. And then the main event. So here are my thoughts. I was trying to think back if there had ever been a UFC fighter the caliber of Dustin Poirier that we as fans and the promotion knew going into that fight that was truly their last fight, right? Typically when guys retire, you know, they say, hey, this is it, right? But I feel, at least I might be wrong, and let me know if I am, but I can't think of another person in the UFC, at least with his legendary status, that we knew that this was going to happen, right? So fight week, all week, it's very different. Like, he's getting very special treatment. He's, you know, emotions are obviously very high. Yada, yada, yada. My whole point in bringing that up is that, in my opinion, Dustin Poirier looked a little flat tonight. And hear me out. I think the reason for that is that he blew his load during his walkout. You know? Like, I know he's made that walkout almost 40 times at this point. Right? Like, he's walked to the cage 40 times. And he's probably gotten very good at controlling the adrenaline dump. However, this was a very emotional night for him. He had Lil Wayne walking out behind him. The crowd in New Orleans was on one. At the end of that second round, I want to say, when Dustin Poirier really had Max Holloway hurt and he was in his guard beating him down in the last 10 seconds, I couldn't even hear that horn blow, okay? So the crowd was going ballistic when Dustin Poirier came out. Bruce Buffer, legendary introductions tonight. They were tip-top shape, right? Again, all that to say, I just think the moment, and that's crazy to say, but I think that the moment may have got to Dustin Poirier a little bit. Like, I'm sure it's hard to get out of your head in that moment, right? I'm sure it's one of the hardest things in the world at that moment to stay present and not be caught up in, oh, Theo Von's in the front row, that's my homie, my wife's here, she's been supporting me my whole time, my daughter, blah, 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 so on and so forth. You get the point. But I think that's the reason. You know, Max Holloway came out in the first round very strong, and in my opinion, looked way faster than Dustin Poirier. It was super evident. So it almost looked like Dustin Poirier needed to be woken up a little bit, and he did. He got tagged pretty early on in the first round. Now, when he got dropped the first time, it didn't really look like it really like shook him that bad, more of just like caught him off guard and tripped him up. But Max Holloway followed up with some pretty good ground and pound too, and did kind of sting him. But ultimately, Dustin recovered first round, came back second round, really put it on Max. Had Max hurt very badly at the end of the second round. Like I said, ended the round in his closed guard. putting it on him. Third round, I thought he coasted a little bit. Like, he could have used that momentum from the second round. Oh, and he jumped on a guillotine in the second round, too. I stood up out of my chair and was like, no fucking way he's jumping the guillotine. And there for a second it looked tight, but, in true fashion, he fumbles the bag. So, one last time for the guillotine, and one last time he fails. So the third round, I thought he should have capitalized on the momentum he had built in the end of the second round, but he didn't. And Max Holloway, I felt, he had the leg kicks in the first 2 rounds, but I felt like in the third round, Max Holloway really started emphasizing the body kicks. And I don't know why Dustin Poirier was having such a hard time getting those reads, but he was getting lit up by those body kicks, in my opinion. But it was just a volume thing. Dustin is usually the guy that's throwing a lot of combinations, and Max is too. But even in their last fight, Dustin was throwing 4, 5, 6 punch combinations. Jab was really active, and it just wasn't tonight. His jab wasn't super active. He threw a couple really slick combinations, but not consistently. They were few and far between. But Max was. Dustin would throw 1 punch, Max would counter with 5. And that's always going to look good in the judge's eyes. And there for a second, by the end of the second round, I was like, you know what? If they don't get each other, if one of them doesn't end the fight by a knockout or submission, if it's relatively close at all, they're in New Orleans, storybook ending, might go to Dustin. But Max kind of took that out of the judge's hands from round 3. I think round 4 and round 5 were, very decisive for Max Holloway. He was definitely doing more damage with his punches, especially later in the fight in round 4 and round 5. One thing that I thought that was weird, and I completely understand where he's coming from. He doesn't want to end up like Justin Gaethje, who, I don't think he was all there before the Max Holloway knockout, but I think that Dustin Poirier understood that he could very easily end up in the same boat that Justin Gaethje did with Max Holloway, right? Especially at 155, because it looks like Max Holloway's a motherfucker at 155, unless he's fighting Ilya. So, Dustin was getting, just the volume was too much. Max was just putting way too much volume on him. And not only volume, but his volume has consequences at 155. At 145, he'd pitter-patter you. Bop, bop, bop. Yeah, you could take 250 strikes from Max Holloway at featherweight and be okay. At lightweight, you can't take 150, 200 strikes from him and not get knocked down or not be showing some damage, right? So I think Max Holloway is going to have an illustrious career at 155. I think the moment got to Dustin Poirier. I think he zapped his energy with that walkout. He dumped his adrenaline. It's unfortunate. I thought it was going to be a little bit more fire from Dustin Poirier. But back to what I was saying, when he got back to his stool after round 4, his coach goes, 5 more minutes of your career. You have got to leave it all out there. And Dustin Poirier, I'd have to go back and watch it exactly, but he said something to the extent of, I'm going to protect myself, but yeah, I got you. And I thought that was a little weird. I understand that you don't want to go out there and just throw caution to the wind and just go out there and throw punches and not protect yourself and get flatlined like Justin Gaethje did, but, dude, you're in front of your hometown crowd. You're down on the scorecards. You need a finish. Let's see the Diamond go out there, bite down on his mouthpiece one more time and fucking bang. Again, I'm fantasizing here. Who cares that he didn't do that, right? He's still a motherfucker. It was still a really, really good fight. I don't think it was as good as the second one, but it was still another great fight. Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier have never been in a boring fight. All three of their fights were great. Dustin Poirier wraps up an absolutely legendary career. Obviously, it would have been really great to see him win in his home state one last time to get a nice storybook ending, but I think he's getting out at a great time. He's still young. He's made his money faux show. He got 2 red panty nights with Conor McGregor, and he's, how many pay-per-views has he headlined at this point? So, there's no reason for him to do this anymore. I'm super happy that he's choosing to get out while he's still got all his mental faculties and he can be a good dad. Because, we see a lot of these guys, they end up like Diego Sanchez. Right? We just saw him. I'm pretty sure he just got arrested. Or they end up like Nick Diaz. Or they end up... So it's like, it's good to see that a good guy like this gets out and he's still with his shit. But that wraps up a great career for Dustin Poirier. Unfortunate that it had to end that way, but who better to spoil it than Max Holloway? I think, like I said, Max Holloway is going to have a great career at 155, but that's it for UFC 318, and that's it for the Diamond Dustin Poirier. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How did you think UFC 318 was? Did you think it was a good card or what? And we'll catch you next week. As always, thanks for stopping by. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.